I'm James Barfield with your Urban Connection. And remember, this is the channel that is often imitated but is never duplicated. Now, today, I want to talk a little bit about America, the United States, which is quickly becoming, if it has not already become, the gun capital of the world. And ladies and gentlemen, that was highlighted this past week when we had 4 violent shootings that were totally unnecessary and unjustifiable, as 4 people were shot, 2 of them shot fatally, all because they made a simple, innocent mistake. Now let's talk about these. And we'll start off with the first one, which was in North Carolina, where a 6-year-old girl and her dad were shot by a neighbor as they were playing basketball, and the basketball inadvertently rolled into the neighbor's yard. Now, the neighbor who was outside when this happened went inside his home and came out with a gun and began yelling at the young girl and shooting. Now, when her father came to confront the shooter and talk to him about the way he was conversing with his young daughter, he too was shot. He is in critical condition in the hospital as we speak. The young 6-year-old, fortunately, only suffered minor injuries to her cheek. She had bone fragments in her cheek that were quickly removed. Now, that's in North Carolina. So now let's move to Houston, Texas, where 4 cheerleaders who were carpooling at a grocery store in Houston and returning from a trip, and one of the girls inadvertently attempted to get into the wrong vehicle. She got in, looked over the passenger seat, and saw a young man sitting there. She immediately removed herself from the vehicle and joined the other girls in the right vehicle. Now, after doing so, she looked around only to see the passenger in the vehicle she had first attempted to get into had gotten out of the car and was approaching the car these girls were in with a gun. And he walks up and immediately starts shooting, killing a 25-year-old cheerleader, all because of one inadvertent, innocent mistake. Now let's move on to the third incident. In New York, a young lady who was 20 years old and 3 passengers in a vehicle were out in an isolated area of town looking for a friend's home when they inadvertently and mistakenly turned into the wrong driveway. When they realized they'd made a mistake, that this wasn't the house they were looking for, they began to turn around and leave the property. At that point, the homeowner came out and began firing into the vehicle, killing the 25-year-old female. And last but not least, in Kansas City, Missouri, a 16-year-old Black male, following his mother's instructions to go to a home on 115th Terrace and pick up his twin brothers, when he inadvertently, mistakenly went to 115th Street and went to knock on the door of what apparently was the wrong house. Now, the homeowner who contends that he was asleep when the gentleman knocked on his door, got up, retrieved his weapon, a 32 caliber weapon, went to the door, opened the interior door, and without asking any questions, upon seeing a young black male, like I said, who was 16 years old, and he immediately fired a shot into the young boy's forehead. When the boy fell to the ground, the homeowner opened the door, the exterior door, and fired another shot. Now, the young man then got up and ran to three neighbors' homes, knocking on doors, attempting to seek help, asking somebody to call 911, only to be met with rejection from those three neighbors. Finally, someone came to his defense and had him on the ground, and I believe they asked him to then took the homeowner into custody to do an initial inquiry. I'm not going to say an investigation, but I'm going to say inquiry to get his side of the story. Now, you won't believe what I'm about to tell you. But the first thing this guy says is that upon opening the door, he saw a young black male and he immediately became afraid because of the man's size. He claims the young boy was 6 feet tall. Nothing could be further from the truth. At most, he is 5'8". Okay? He was not threatening in no way. He was not armed. He was not attempting to enter the house. He simply was there, he thought, to pick up his two twin brothers. The homeowner began firing after having asked no questions. No words were exchanged between he and the young man. And he felt that his life was threatened. Why? Would he have felt the same had this been a 16-year-old white youth at his door, ringing his doorbell at approximately 10 o'clock at night? So they released this homeowner after the initial inquiry, less than 24 hours after the incident, saying that they needed to do more investigative work and they needed to talk to the victim, who was in the hospital at that time. Now, later on, after much attention was given to this mistaken incident, not the shooting part, that was not mistaken, but this young boy ringing the doorbell, being at the wrong home, being on 115th Street as opposed to 115th Terrace. After the neighbors and the people in the Kansas City community of Northland began to make so much noise and began protesting, the DA then finally re-arrested this homeowner and did more interrogation to find out what really happened. And then the homeowner, at this point in time, now he didn't say this initially, but at this point in time, said he shot after he saw the young boy reaching for the door handle. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a lot of questions here. In the first place, these kinds of allegations, which this guy, in my opinion, is totally lying to hide his racist behavior. But these kinds of allegations can be even uh, immediately either dispelled or rendered as fact. And it's simple. You fingerprint the door handle. If the young boy was reaching for the door handle and his fingerprints were on there, you might have a valid argument. If no such fingerprints can be found, you have a liar on your hands. Now, so this guy is then finally arrested and he's charged with 2 felonies. He's charged with felony assault. Okay? A felony assault. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just explain something to you. Fortunately, this young man, after being shot in the head, is still with us. He lived to talk about it. But I want to say one thing. Anytime you shoot somebody in the head, it goes without saying that you were intending to kill that person. You were not aiming to stop a threat. You were not aiming to wound. You were shooting and aiming to do severe bodily harm. So why were not the charges first-degree attempted murder? Because that's what it was. And if that's not enough, once he was on the ground, the victim, once he was on the ground at the home, the homeowner then opened the exterior door and shot him a second time. That's premeditated, ladies and gentlemen. So why is it that this guy was hit with a bond of only $200,000 when he should have been charged with first-degree attempted murder? And the bond should have been at least $500,000, at least. And I don't care about his age. I don't care about his mentality. I don't care about any of that. That's what would have happened to me. That's what would have happened to you. So why not this guy? And it baffles me why it is that the defense attorneys are not seeking a attempted first-degree murder charge levied against this guy. I mean, yeah, we're glad some charges were filed, but come on, the punishment here, the charges don't fit the crime. This was not an attempt to stop a threat. This was an attempt to kill. I don't care what you want to call it. This was what it was. He shot him in the forehead. You don't do that unless you intend to kill. Okay? All right. So now we have a situation where the guy's out on bond, $200,000. Okay? I mean, that's either $20,000 is all he needs, okay, to get out on bond. All right? So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered here. Now, another question that I have is now we have people throwing up this stand your ground law as a defense for this homeowner. No, stand your ground law does not imply that you can shoot first and ask questions later. In particular, when you have someone that is not posing a threat, that is not posing a danger, that is not breaking and entering your home, that is not seeking to cause you any bodily harm. He simply made a mistake and inadvertently rang a doorbell on 115th Street as opposed to 115th Terrace. Okay? So, we've got a lot of questions here, and I want to tell you right now, we've seen many, many cases where these stand your ground laws have been used to exonerate these people that are accused of shooting maiming, and even killing young, unarmed Black males. That's all across the country, including Trayvon Martin, okay? Including Mr. Arbery, and the list goes on, including Tamir Rice. So this stand your ground law won't hold up. And the DA has already said, now he didn't expand on it, but he has already said that he sees a racial motive or racial intent here in this particular case. Now, to back that up, this homeowner's grandson, or should I say sons, because there was two of them, have said that this homeowner was one of those that was a news junkie and listened religiously with the volume turned up to Fox News and was misled by their conspiracy theories and by their continued insistence that Blacks are all criminals. And they had indoctrinated this guy. This was his mindset. So when he opened the door at 10 o'clock at night and he saw a Black male, it didn't matter how old he was, it didn't matter how tall he was, or how short he was. What he saw was what he thought that Fox News had been alluding to. Here's another Black male attempting to commit a crime. And he immediately shot him. Ladies and gentlemen, no, that is not what Stand Your Ground law was written for, was signed into law for. And these are not the kinds of perpetrators the Stand Your Ground was meant to protect. It's plain and simple. This guy should be charged, and I hope they will upgrade the charges to attempted first-degree murder. Because to harm them, you should kill them. In this particular case, unfortunately, for the perpetrator, and fortunately for the victim, it was not a fatal shot. The young man is going to have a terrible life ahead of him because he's going to be going through astronomical medical services and procedures, and he's going to need a lot of prayers and a lot of help. Fortunately for him, his mother is a medical professional, being a nurse, and I believe his aunt is a physical therapist. So he's blessed in that area. A GoFundMe account has been set up, and I'm happy to say that at this point, it has raised over $3 million for his medical expenses. And I can tell you, he will need every dime of it. And I only hope that at some point in time, our politicians in Washington, D.C. will begin to see that the United States is becoming or has become the gun capital of the world. And they seem to care more about the concerns and the wishes of the NRA than they are the concerns and the wishes of parents and innocent people, unarmed people, young children, as well as adults here in the United States. They don't care about how many lives are lost, how many are injured or maimed. They don't care if they're young elementary school students, or if they're high school students, or if they're college students, or if they're adults. They could care less because they are under the control of the NRA. And let me tell you people one thing. The only way that I see that you're going to change this is you're going to have to change your behavior when it comes to casting a vote. And you have to vote out the people that care more for the concerns of the NRA than they do you, your loved ones, your children, your neighbors, and anybody else. You have to vote them out. And you have to do your part by voting them out. And if you're not willing to do that, just remember this: the life you save could be your own. But if you don't vote, you're not going to save anybody's life. Okay? That's my show for today. I'm James Barfield, and I'm out.